Welcome back. It's My Life in Letters. This is episode 2 of season 2. And we feature Wane from COD crew. And if you listened 2 weeks ago, we pulled a section of this larger interview where we talk about Wane's entrepreneurship and the streetwear brand that he created, the Writer's Bench, and what it took for him to run that company, where his inspirations came from, and a whole lot of other things. And in this episode you're about to hear, it's the entire interview that we did, his part 2 to his original interview from last season, episode 25. And in this interview, we cover from 1986, where we left off in his first interview, to the early 2000s. And so I'll just announce it right now. Yes, we're going to do a part 3 with Wane in our 3rd season next year. But let's get into this episode 2. Let's get into this larger interview, since that's what a lot of you guys have written to us about, saying that you want us to keep this large, longer oral history format. So let's get right into it. Thanks again for listening. I hope you guys enjoy this. What did you just say?
We ended at 86.
Yeah, 86. That's true. That is where our last interview ended. Part 1 of this interview with Wane COD, who we have on the phone right now. Wane's at his studio, and I'm here. I'm actually in my studio.
Boondock Studios, baby.
Yeah, Wane is at the Boondock Studios. I'm in my Brooklyn studios. It's season 2. This is episode 1, and it just happens to be part 2 of Wane COD's interview. And, you know, it's perfect, man, to start with a guy like you, Wane, because you live and breathe this thing that is graph culture, that is like letter smithing. Like you're more dedicated to it, in my opinion, in my view, than most. And so to start you off at the top of our season 2 is great. And we had a great talk last year. You were episode 25.
Yes, we did.
And like you just were saying, we ended off in 1986. And, you know,
that's correct.
We're not necessarily going to try to push through 30 years in this talk right now, but let's get going because, you know, we were talking.
It's like 36 years, but.
Oh, damn. There you go. And, you know, basically, you know, again, thank you for coming back on. You know, since.
Listen, Adam, I'm happy to be back. I think a few times, and you told me quite a few people you got good feedback about episode 25.
Oh, man.
Which I did last year.
People went nuts.
And I just want to say, you know, thank you to all the listeners and everybody out there, whether you're a writer, an artist, a muralist, or just someone that wants to, you know, just curiosity about you know, about the culture. It's amazing because we've been trying to document it for years and just put out that information so
you really
so people
have.
get an idea of how we tick.
You really have. And actually we should thank you for the amount of documentation that you've provided over the years. And you know, before we started this,
brother, everybody's got to do their part. Everyone's got to do their part.
Man, I agree. And not enough people are actually willing to self-sacrifice because everybody's just out trying to get theirs, you know? And so it's hard.
Yeah. Everybody's chasing money.
Yeah, pretty much. If that's your goal.
I say, and you know, me included, but you know, for many years, man, I chased the passion, man. You know,
yeah. Well, and that pays off in the end.
I feel like, I mean, I hope so. I mean, you know, I think for most people, pre-internet, pre-social media, all that stuff, and you could talk to writers or anybody in a subculture, you know, skateboarding, you know, tattooing, all these things, you know, graphic design. A lot of it is people did it because they were passionate about it. They loved it, you know, and that was it.
That's true.
No one knew that, you know, I'm going to get my work published in a book, or people want to listen to know my story, and
right.
No one, that's it.
Yep.
So it's great that we have all these, you know, we have the internet and we can share, and social media we can share with the world, and podcasts like My Life in Letters. But we also got to remember of the reason why we were doing it. And
Yeah.
I just want to
exactly.
start off with
And
that.
so that's nice. That's nice to begin with passion. I mean, again, you're one of those guys, like I said at the top, that just you
Much
exude
appreciated,
it. You exude
brother.
it. And we were talking before the interview about some important things that we wanted to touch on in this part 2. And the very top was this 238 bridge. I mean, straight up, you were like, let's
238 bridge, yes.
And this is an infamous spot. It's come up on I would say dozens of My Life in Letters interviews, and it's like I said, it's infamous. It's a famous place. Tell us about like your, I don't know, experiences with it, or how you like grew up with it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'd love to share. I mean, I just want to say first of all, for so many people have their own experiences with 238. Mm-hmm. It's just an epic place. At 238 Bridge, the first thing that people should know about 238 Bridge is the bridge that separates the Bronx and Yonkers, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very small bridge that you can walk over, or a bus goes over it, but once you cross that side of the bridge, you kind of like now into more of the Yonkers area. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Under the bridge for many years, people have been painting there. First, a lot of local guys from that neighborhood. My man Cav and Key, who Cav actually did a book on 238 Bridge, a book of not all the work, but of years of work that had been done under that bridge.
What was the name?
But first, it was just local guys like Jin and MI1. They were NPC guys, and also they had they were also down with a crew called GU Graffiti Unlimited, which was a guy, a writer by the name of Pove. That was his crew. He also painted a lot of trains back in the days.
What was the name of the book of the bridge? What was it called?
238.
That's the name of the book, 238.
Yeah,
okay.
I believe it's. I actually believe the book is called 238 Bridge.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I could be. Listen. Don't hold me to that. I could be wrong.
It's all good. It's all good. You mentioned that it's out there. That's good enough. And did you paint that by 86? Since that's where we left off at. Was that something that you were already? Were you going that way?
Yeah, for sure. We had already, the bridge was, you could go at that particular time, you could go down there in the day, and in the daytime that is, and you could, there was so many walls, you could pick a wall and you can get busy, and kind of, back then 238th Street, was kind of a practice spot.
Right. Okay. And did you go in 86 to practice?
Well, I had been going there since probably 85. And we'd go down there in the day, and we'd be able to pick a wall. There's so many walls, and we were able to do a full piece. First, we'd go down there with silver and colors, and then we started. We noticed a lot of writers would start going there, mostly Bronx writers, and and who were you going down with? Who were you painting with? The first few pieces I was going down there were more, like in my first interview, I mentioned my first partner, Devs, Devs, a Jamaican kid that lived upstairs from me. And we became friends, and then there was another guy that wrote at that time who wrote with us, this guy Vile, a bunch of early guys, and then we painted, and then also Vism, Sign 5, Key, those early guys, early COD guys. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Some of the guys I knew before I was even writing.
Nice. And actually, it's interesting, like looking back at a spot like 238, like I'm curious what your feelings are now, like 30 years later, of a spot that's been around for 40 years. Like, how do you kind of envision, where do you hold that thing as far as in like regard? It's in high regard, but.
No, it's legendary. It's legendary because, like I said, it started off with local writers and not really, I was going to say earlier, not really a fame spot. It wasn't a fame spot.
Yeah, you were saying it's a practice spot.
A practice spot. The claim to fame was on trains, subways. That was it. Okay, so, but over the years, because certain people painted there, then as time went on and more generations painted at the at the 238 bridge, it became legendary.
Right. Yeah.
And so amazing. Just amazing.
You know, like you said, trains were like your thing. And in our first interview, we talked about how around 86, you linked up with Diro and started getting down with him. You were telling me that in 87, that's when you guys really were getting at the trains.
Just amazing. Like I mean, you know, like I said, my first partner was my boy Devs. We painted some trains and walls, and then I painted also with Michelob. You know, he took me to paint my first train. Right. You know, just to recap. And Diro was a guy I looked up to around the neighborhood, and also in my eye, kind of already a seasoned writer. Sure. Because when I started taking photos and stuff, when I went out to the 4 line, he had a bunch of cars already. Two of the most famous cars I remembered was he had a car. I believe it was a Des Duster Diro, right? and then another car, a Des Duster. Now, Des and Duster were legends already. Yeah. Right? We didn't use that word legends though. You know, back then we just was like, wow, these guys are, you know, they're famous.
They're up.
You know, and style wise and creative, they were at the top of their game. Okay? Yeah. So just that he moved around the block and I had access to him was cool, but he was painting a lot of trains with Poem and other guys, and SAC, MBT, and other writers.
You know, also like you mentioned guys like your first partner Devs and Michelob. Like when I don't know those guys work enough. When I look at Duro pieces and I look at your letters and some of your structure, I can just see the influence. You know?
Oh yeah. I mean, normally I think any. You know, just me, from my experience, normally I believe any writer or any writers, a group of writers that paint together, regardless if a writer, I mean, Diro was my mentor, you know, one of my mentors because it was the Diro and Michelob. But Diro, it doesn't matter if they directly show you or you're just with them. Yeah. And you admire their work and you look up to them. It just rubs off. So, it's true. Diro never really sat me down and was like, "Oh, this is how you do it." He was more of a guy like, "Oh yeah, that looks all right. Go with that." You know, like you know, because I'd be practicing doing my thing. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I mean, if it was wrong, he'd be like, "No, you know, nah, make that a little bit more legible. Do that a little bit like that." Right. But what was great was that he had the respect enough for me, even though he was my mentor, that he was like that. He trusted in me to do it. And then so for I would say like from 84 till about 86, he painted a lot of cars with Poem, right? And then I had went to the 1 line and did some cars, my boy Devs and also Avon. And then when I came back from the 1 line in 86, that spring or that summer, I think Diro I believe he had broke up with his girlfriend at that time. And I just so happened to have a spot. I was painting trains uptown with my man Key. Okay. And Diro, you know, I was like, "Yo, what up, D? You know, what's going on?" He's you know, fuck it, you know, I just broke up with my girl, whatever. And then I was like, "Yo, I got this spot uptown, man. She's fresh." You know, he's like, "Oh, where? What you?" I said, "Yo, it's like kind of like a layup that not too many people knew." Key had put me onto it. Key COD, basically where he lived almost, because he lived near 238 Bridge. This spot was 233rd. So what happens is the train would pull in at 1 o'clock at night, right? They would pull in 1 or 2 trains, which is 9-car layups. So that they pull in 2 trains to 18 cars, right? Okay. And they'd put it in that express track, and they're pulling at 1 o'clock, and I guess they would pull out in the morning. And what Key would do is he'd go down and he'd do his thing. So he put me onto it. So we started going with Diro, pulling out cars. So basically Key, me, Diro, my man Whips, Bell, you know, some of the, like I said, early COD guys and other guys that also Diro mentored.
And I'm wondering if there was more paint on trains in 87 or 88 than there was in 85 85 or 86?
I think during the era of the 80s period, I think there was thousands of guys painting.
Yeah.
I think what happened, like I said, I'm not going to speak before I got into the game, but I was watching it. You know, like I said, I started in '83, but I've been watching it from like 80 from '78.
Yeah.
So there was tons of riders, hundreds if not thousands, right? And then what happened is on the 2s and 5s, the RT lines, there was the train was silver with a blue stripe.
Right.
Okay. For real train enthusiasts, those trains are called the R22s. People know which ones I'm talking about.
Okay.
And then, okay, you know, when you look in Star Wars, that particular car they have model numbers, R22. So that particular car, I believe, somewhere in '83, the MTA waged war on graffiti, saying they were going to stop it. And meaning wage war is they always buffed, but what they did is they started painting them white, completely white. And they had some program they were trying to do where they were trying to paint the entire system, you know, in a matter of months or that year. Who knows? I don't know so much. I don't know the details to that. But people started noticing it. Like one line, like you went to the 6th line, they were all white. You went to the 2s and 5s, they were all white.
Right.
And then I believe the 3 line, right? And the 1 line and the 4 line never got painted. Okay, they were filthy. Okay, so what happened is, in '83 they were white. Okay, so prior to that, the layers and layers of paint had been probably there from the '70s. Okay, okay, people painting and then they're buffing and people painting. Right. But now in '83, once they painted it white, Scene UA and I believe Blade and Comet were the first to hit the white. After they had painted it white, they were the first riders, I believe, you know, from my experience and what I saw, that crushed it.
Okay.
They came back and they were like not scared to hit the whites, and they, you know, they did these big Jafoam fat cap tags on these white cars.
Nice.
And then they began to do fill-ins and throw-ups. And then once that happened and everybody realized that, oh, all they did was paint it white, it's just going to run anyway, then everybody attacked. And so now, but I don't think I don't think it diminished before that or even after that. I just thought that, like, what happened is that they painted it white and you got to see, it's like they cleaned the slate and people started over. If they caught you, the penalties were beginning to become a little harsher.
Right. Yeah, not the days when you could just buff out your own tags, but instead they're going to court.
I mean, you know, in those days, like I said, you know, one time I got grabbed. I don't know if I explained it on that first podcast. But long story short, what happened was, normally if you were a minor, meaning if you were under 18, and then also they had to catch you in the act painting. You know, if you were on transit property, there was 2 things. They had to physically catch you writing and see you to prove it.
Right.
So to get a graffiti charge wasn't also, it was also hard for them to prove it. But if they did catch you and you got a graffiti charge, you know, I believe the first 3 times you didn't really do jail time. You buffed trains and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, I believe you got locked up. You had to do some time.
Yeah.
A lot of guys also, if they ran and they didn't really physically have paint on their hand or anything like that of that nature, they got a trespassing charge. So it depends. So if you got a trespassing charge, that ain't shit. You were out there next day.
Yeah.
You know, first time they grabbed me on a trespassing charge. I had paint and everything. We were waiting for the layup to pull in Esplanade, but we were on the station. So they grabbed us and gave us a trespassing charge. And technically, if I had a lawyer, I wasn't even trespassing because I wasn't even on the tracks.
Oh, no. You could have just been a person riding the train.
I was on the platform. The only thing is the MTA at that particular time on the 5 line, if people know Esplanade, it's the 5 line going northbound, is at 9 o'clock at that particular time, like I said, when they grabbed me the first time, I got arrested, which is, I believe, in '84, right? When they grabbed me and I got arrested, they grabbed me on Esplanade Station, and they grabbed us. But what I'm realizing, I'm actually realizing it now. We wasn't even trespassing because we were on the platform.
Yeah, you could probably sue them now for like $1 million for fucking racially profiling you and harassing you. Yeah.
Well, I think they wasn't racially profiling because I'll give them this one time because
Okay.
we were it was like a mixed group of us. There were,
It was a nice
white kids.
Oh, that's good. Good
Black,
job.
Puerto Rican. Yeah, so but I think they noticed we had bags and they could see it.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, but they wasn't supposed to really harass us because we weren't trespassing, because at that time they ran a shuttle train, meaning there was 2 trains that ran shuttle northbound between 180th Station and Dyer Avenue from 9 p.m. to somewhere in the morning before rush hour.
Okay.
Like, because those stations was so way out in the boroughs that the MTA didn't have full service versus Manhattan. If you were in Manhattan, the services didn't change. They had more. It slowed down, but it didn't change. This just changed to 2 trains shuttling back and forth.
Dang. Okay.
Which one of the reasons why they're probably parking the trains in between a lot of those stops.
Mm-hmm.
You had Esplanade, which held maybe all the way to the stickouts, maybe a good 6 trains that was parked there. And then you had Baychester, which was another 6 trains or more that would be parked there. And then you had Dye Avenue, which was like another 2 trains in the back.
We had mentioned talking about going all city and like not just painting one line, but IRTs and BMTs. Do you want to speak a little bit about your experience in? I mean, I don't want to say your attempt to go all city, but just your experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, initially the idea for me was just to get one piece on the train or a few pieces, and then I'd be done with it. I mean, that's what I was thinking as a kid. Oh my God, if I could just get one piece on the train, I'd be happy. And then, like I said, I told you about that if they listened to the first podcast, I spoke about that first time I went. And once you saw that train run, that's the best experience ever.
What I'm interested in, though, also with that is that there was a time when dudes would only do a line, their line. Like, when did people get it into their consciousness to go all city and to try to do more? I mean, like, was there a particular year you can accredit to that phrase and that activity of trying to do all the IRTs and BMTs? That's
another great question. You in the first episode, you asked a great question. This is a great one. I wouldn't know, but okay. but it goes back. It goes back. I believe it goes all the way back. Who and guys like Jester, who was all city, and they were also they were writers from the 70s, and those guys were going all city back then
in the 70s. Yeah, of course. Okay, and so, but for you, was it 80? Was it 88 that you made that choice to try to do that, to try to do multiple lines?
Yeah, I would say late 87, 88. First we started off on the number lines doing 1s and 2s and 5s and then 3s.
Which, for those who aren't in New York City or know New York City history, those were the IRTs, the ones that had the numbers.
Those are the IRTs. Right. Yeah, and then we end up hitting the 6 line. But there was no way for us to really get a taste of the 4 line, because by the time we really got into it, the 4 line, they had replaced all the R22s with brand new silver trains, which they had kind of kept the eye on it. I mean, we end up hitting those later on in the clean train era, but not pre-clean train. So then what happened is we because I would hang out in Brooklyn with my man Ven AOK, and we travel back and forth. He'd come up to the Bronx. They made the transition to letter lines, and they were also benching letters because they were out there, and they were also into bombing a lot of lines with throw-ups. The letter lines at that particular time that I was painting was more known for throw-ups, even though they were guys that did, burners or masterpieces on those lines. Like, one of the most famous guys or star writer from those lines is Baby 168.
Mm-hmm.
If you look on Star Wars, the car comes around the bend and these guys, men in them are screaming. At the end of one of the cars is a Baby 168. He's a Brooklyn guy with a lot of style. He had so much style that people even knew his name uptown. But I don't remember seeing any of his pieces on the IRTs. I'm not saying he didn't do any. I didn't see any. It wasn't until when you thought of the letter lines, you thought of guys like that, and also a lot of guys that bombed RTW on the letter lines. Quick, RTW, Bo, Min was all city. He was on letter lines and IRTs. I mean BMTs and IRTs. So, and to answer your question, it was about late 87, 88 because of then we found a really good spot, which we call the 57th layup or tunnel, which was a new tunnel that the MTA had been building under Central Park. And Ven got wind of this place. And, hey, we started going down there. It was like, so I started painting on the BMT lines.
Where was the entrance?
The entrance was near kind of like Central Park, around the upper 50s.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you when you go into the park, you just jump over the wall, and there was like a metal grating like that's on the streets.
Oh, nice! But it was in the park.
It was in the park, and you jump. You once you got into the park, you jump. You'd open it up, and then you go down. You go down about 4 to 5 flights. Short flights down. The tunnel was really, really clean. It wasn't a tunnel. They had just built it. And in this long tunnel, they would park about maybe 2 sets in there. And so you're looking at guys. So I would be painting there with guys like Van OK, Ghost, Risk Crew, a lot of Risk guys, a lot of Queens guys, also Brooklyn guys as well.
Nice.
And Ven was kind of like a guy who was an advocate of the way of like bringing back a lot of writers. Like he basically got guys like Doc and Magoo, and even through bringing those guys back, even TC5, Dero, we all painted back there. Like we all. I mean, I never stopped painting, and neither did Dero at that point. But some guys that we painted with in that tunnel, they might have had taken a break, and through Ven. They were able to they were invited to come down there and rock. Also, that tunnel, we were able to do an entire whole car, which has only been done in the history of the MTA maybe 3 or 4 times. I think the last guys that did it was the MUL crew out of Chicago, nice. and I believe they did it in the same place. Because the train still parks there sometimes, I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
Really? So who'd you do that? Who'd you do that whole car with?
That whole car basically was me, Ghost, Cento, TFP, this guy, Sear, or he used to write Issue, another TFP guy, Lace 357, who's an old school writer from the mid 70s that kept writing, all the way up to almost the present day. Who else was down there? A lot of guys. Ven AOK, so a lot of these guys. And
sounds like a good time.
Also, just to add to that, because I know time is short.
Nah, we got all the time in the world. Nah, we're good. We're good.
I wish you did. I know our listeners would love to hear this, but this is where Dondi did his last train. The bus 129 whole car.
Really?
Okay, and I believe Doc brought him down there. But like I said, Ven was trying to bring all these guys back. He would really nag them to tell them, we got this spot, and you got to come, and everything's cool. And then so Dondi did this car, and I remember Ven calling and saying, "Hey, yeah, Dondi finished that car. It's in the layup." And before the car actually pulled out, we went down there to look at it, and talk about a work of excellence. It's like this guy was a craftsman, man. I mean, like for that time, you know, when if you see his book, you see this photo in there. It was clean, as clean as a piece that people do today. So
yeah, we had talked about like that in '89. Like, I don't know if things transitioned for you when you started like airbrushing stuff and started like basically creating your first merch. But like, I'm curious about that transition between or bringing on that new element to your work. What was that all about? What was that like?
yeah, I mean, for me, like, you know, like I said, painting from '83 consistently, day in, day out, racking, you know, dealing with all the beefs and all the BS behind graph. And, you know, just trouble with the police. At this time, the police was really looking for me, and my mom really getting pissed off. And so in '89, I was, you know, I've never stopped painting, but I kind of was trying to kick the habit a little bit. So what I did was I wasn't painting, you know, sometimes Ven would call, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to pass. And then I picked up my airbrush, but I was never good at it. But now I started spending more time in my mom's basement and really just trying to, you know, to really get good at it. And so I do shirts for myself, and then kids on the block will be like, hey, yo, you know, I like that shirt, man. Like, yo, can you do me one? And I'd be like, yeah, you know, $15, man, I'll do your shirt.
Nice. Actually, that's a pretty good amount right there. What was like on that shirt, do you think, that kid saw? Like, what were some of the early ones you did just for yourself?
No, I would just do like a Wane piece or a Bronx piece or something that said New York, and I would do a character. I would you know, kind of do a b-boy character, because back then I was really big into doing b-boy characters and stuff, and just a lot of bright colors. You know, just picture a full color piece on a
you're
t-shirt.
going full color. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the beginning, I wasn't that good. For anybody who knows airbrushing, there's a single action, a double action. So I was trying to get good at the double action. And what happened? So I wasn't good at first. I would sketch the first lines with chalk or a pencil on a white T-shirt, and then I would just fill it in with the airbrush, and I'd do all my outlining of detail with a black Sharpie. They have Sharpies that are made to write on clothing, and then once I started doing a lot of shirts, I mean, I was literally doing them day in, day out, just like I was painting trains. It just kind of, you know, it just organically happened, and then what happened from there is I got a gig downtown on 106th at a shop. There was this guy, Big Ed, who at the time he worked with this guy Dapper Dan, who was really famous for doing all these leather jackets for all the rappers at the time.
He was famous right now. Dude's in the news right now. Did you hear about
I think,
that most recent thing?
Yeah, I think they're going to do a movie on him, someone was saying.
I think also, could be wrong, but I think it was either Gucci, that must have been Gucci, offered a partnership. They're working together right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because after he got nailed, they bid him on that runway show with the big Dapper Dan looking jacket, and then they didn't even give him, a call out. And then social media went crazy defending him and saying, "Yo, that's Dapper Dan. You sued him a long time ago." And then now they've come back and they're like offering him work.
So let me shed a little light on this guy real quick, because so like basically what happened was Dapper Dan had a shop on 125th, kind of almost on the east side of 125th, where what happened was he was sewing up, he had Africans printing Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Fendi.
Chanel, exactly. All those patterns.
They would print up the fabric somewhere else, and they'd bring it to the shop, they'd cut it up, and then they would sew up these so-called kind of like jumpsuits, almost like tracksuit styles, which was very popular at that time. Sergio Duttini and all those type of brands was really popular and really expensive.
Yeah,
but
if you guys listening don't know Dapper Dan style, just Google it and you'll see these this amazing styles.
Right. So first he catered to local drug dealers in the city. And I know this because you had to have money to go there. I mean, like his suits was costing anywhere from $300 to $400 to $1,200. He was also doing like car interiors. Anyway, long story short, not to get off of it while we're here, but what happened was he built this niche into doing all these suits for rappers that used them for photo shoots of album covers, right? And this guy Big Ed used to work for him, but what happened was Tyson and this guy Mitch Green had a fight, an actual fist fight in front of the shop, which brought a lot of attention to the shop, which led to people going, "Oh, this is not real Gucci. This is not real Fendi," and the law enforcement shut him down. Mm-hmm. So some of the guys that worked for him branched off and did their own shops around 125th, like at the Mart that was across the street from the Apollo, which is kind of a flea market place. A guy called Bell Fashions, who also worked, I believe, with Davidan at the time. He was doing suits. And then this guy, Big Ed, had a shop on 106th and Lexington. So he needed an airbrush guy, some guy from the street. Mm-hmm. Told me, yo, they looking for an airbrush guy. Put me on to him. And so I'd airbrush, because airbrushing and making those custom suits kind of went hand in hand at the time.
Okay, I could see that.
They were popular.
And they would be sold in the same kind of space. Like you could get that look, or you could get the airbrush look. They were there.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And also you had to come off a bunch of paper. It wasn't cheap. Back then, we were selling. I think a T-shirt was $40 to $60 to just get your name, and a b-boy character and your shit done up. And if you wanted a portrait, it'd be like $100, $125. Now you're talking. This is like 1990, 91, 92.
Right.
And so Big Ed had hired me, and I'd do the airbrushing, and I worked with him for about a year, and then after that, a guy from Pearl Paint, who saw, again, they would see me wearing my shirts and say, "Hey, you should go to Unique Boutique."
Right.
This is how I got introduced to the whole downtown scene. Mm-hmm. So he said, "Yeah, go here. Talk to this guy. Mike. They're looking for airbrush artists." Okay, so I go over there. I had a little photo book from the one. Anybody that remembers the 1 hour photo labs back in the day, when you went there and you got a roll of film developed, they always gave you a little free photo album, a really cheesy one, and you put your photos in, right?
That was like your portfolio. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I gotta tell it like it is.
That's great. That's great. And like you worked for Unique Boutique for a while.
2 years. Mm-hmm. And then they shut down, and then we moved from there to had another shop that did it was called A Lot of New York. So when Unique closed, we went over there and said, "Hey, we could do this airbrushing. These guys are closing down." Mm-hmm. And because the guy that owned Unique Boutique abused his money, that he couldn't pay the rent, and they shut him down. He was kind of like a eccentric kind of dude. Like, when you went in, I want people to get an idea of Unique Boutique because it was very a very special place in the Village, and it basically described what the Village was at that time. A lot back then, you didn't get a lot of people from the outer boroughs that went into the Village. Mm-hmm. But the Village was a very eclectic group of people. You see people down there punk rock style. You see people down there like dressed very house music style. I mean, you had to kind of be around at that time. Yeah,
you would see it all.
But a lot of like, like you'd see like I was down there painting. I think one of my jobs from Unique Boutique was a place called Paradise Plus, which was a kind of flea market store across the street from Canal Jeans, and I'm painting the top of it, whatever. And Lenny Kravitz walks by and starts looking. Oh, and I look down at this guy. I'm like, "Oh shit, it's Lenny Kravitz." Now, back then he had just dropped an album, it was incredible. But you see a lot of people. You see Cindy Crawford. You see a lot of these. You see also like people that came in there to get shirts done and stuff. I did pants for LL Cool J. I did stuff for Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Vanilla Ice did a lot of his tour stuff. Also, even BBD, they got most of their stuff done by shirt things, but they even came into Unique Boutique and so forth. Nice. New Kids on the Block, Donnie Wahlberg on them. Mm-hmm. They were there. Actually, the funny thing about those guys, they were so popular amongst teenagers. And back then, there was no internet or nothing, right? that when they showed up to the shop, kids would be there. So many kids would be there. I still don't know how these fucking kids knew that these guys was going to show up. So that's just to give you a little gist.
Well, yeah, it sounds like Unique Boutique was a lot of fun too for you. It must have been like, you know, that exposure to the music industry and other industries through fashion. And you're still doing your thing. You're still basically doing graffiti based work, just with the airbrush. And I know that, like, you said you were at Unique Boutique for a couple of years. 91.
So in 1991, I got invited to my first Grab Jam, or as people know it today, mural festivals, which are happening worldwide in every city now. It's just like a worldwide phenomenon.
What was this one called?
This one was called MZ Fresh, and it was a very important jam. This jam, I met guys from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Holland, all over Germany, France. And some of these guys are still the top guys today painting, you know, like Bates, Sabe, guys like Renz, guys like CMP, this guy Gold from up in Norway, this guy Nug from Sweden. You know, I mean, some of our listeners might not know these writers. Putting it down in their city, in their country, in their cities.
Yeah,
they
had already still putting
even
it down.
though I was clueless to that point when I went to that event to what happened. Also, I remember meeting Delta from Holland, guys like that. You know, the listeners might want to know, how did you get invited to this jam? Right. Well, what happened in '88 under the 238 bridge? Let's go back to 238 bridge. Is I was walking under there one day back in '88, and I met this guy. So he wrote Zebrock, or as people know him today, Zebrock Ski.
Okay.
Now, so like I said, I was on the 238 bridge. I ran into him. He had a heavy English accent that, you know, like kind of European. I didn't really know because I was clueless to
wait, like British? Because you're from London. Well, did he have a British accent? Sound like your your folks? Okay.
He just sounded like he wasn't from the Bronx.
Yeah, he had that European.
That I knew.
Oh, okay.
You know, because I was deep in the Bronx and New York, and we had the only person we had met before him that was from Europe, that was in the graffiti culture, was this guy Diz. It's a guy that I remember at that time. I remember him telling us he was from France, but recently some guys from Amsterdam hit me up and they said, no, that guy Diz was from Holland.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Long story short, to get back to where we at. So I meet Zebrock, or Zeb.
And that was in 88, but he doesn't invite you to the jam until 91?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, but we had stayed in touch as pen pals. Like when I met him, and he told me a bunch of things. He had been in the city, whatever, painting with some people, running into some issues. So basically I said, come with me. I ironed out some issues for him. And I took him to do a rooftop in my neighborhood that night. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then he shows me a bunch of photos of pieces he did on trains in Germany and also in different parts of Europe. Nice. He had already been traveling around.
Dope.
And I was excited because I was like, what?
Yeah, graffiti? That's new. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now, so what happened was, when he went back to Germany, he wrote me a letter, and then I wrote him a letter back, and we, send letters back and forth. Mm-hmm. And then in 91, he invited me to the MZ Fresh Jam, where I met a lot of the guys that I previously spoke about.
And this is like a big deal to a lot of writers, I guess, but especially like an American writer getting invited to a European jam back then too. This is new. These festivals weren't that big. This was a new thing. And so now you get involved, which just gives you like a level of credibility, and you're exposed to a new market of people. And some of these artists you're still friends with today, I'm sure. So like that's
exactly.
Like, I can see how that would be a huge deal for you at the time.
I mean, extremely huge because of many reasons. It's like kind of a culture shock,
right? Yeah, because from the Bronx to Holland. Yeah,
I was so immersed in the Bronx and what was going on with hip hop and right. street culture and street fashion. Right. Even though I didn't know it, and then here they threw me a curveball, and I'm like, I land in Munich, Germany. I'm walking around in Munich, Germany.
Oh, it's Germany. Yeah, nice.
Everything is so stealth. Everything is so clean. Mm-hmm. Trains on time. You know, so it was so different. Everyone's saying, "How you doing?"
Right.
And I'm like, "How am I doing?" Fuck you saying hello? You being from the Bronx? I'm like, what? Why are you talking to me? I don't know you. Anyway, we were little. We were so because of the way everybody was such in the 80s and the 90s. People were in survival mode, on the streets. So it was like that. I mean, it's hard for people to grasp now. Anyway, long story short. I when I got invited, I was excited about it, and I was open-minded enough to take the opportunity, and I went there.
I'm curious. Back then, 91, a jam like that, did they pay for your flight, your hotel? Did they give you food? How were the services to the artists back then?
Yes, they paid for the flight. Places for me to stay. They also paid for me to get a Euro pass, and I was able to travel in different places in Germany. I didn't go to any other countries.
Okay. Still, it must have been such a great experience for you to be able to do that.
Listen, it changed my life.
Yeah.
People don't understand. Sometimes you have to take people out of their comfort zone and put them someplace.
Yeah.
And just meeting all those people and seeing how people interacted.
Yeah, and traveling to another country, another continent, your everything just expands. Your mind, your capacity to see other people in different ways expands. And that's most people I know. The first time they go to Europe, that trip is really influential. And that's cool. And
totally.
You know what I wonder is, because I know that 92, 93 after this jam is when you started doing some really bigger things. Like you started working in music videos and doing art direction. What I'm curious about, though, from that 91 trip and your exposure to Germany was how it affected your graph, how it affected your design kind of ideas, and your personal brand. Like, what did Europe do? Germany specifically, what did it do?
So that trip affected me. It was huge for me because culturally, in Europe, I was meeting people my age. I was 21, and people younger, even to the age of 17, that spoke 2 to 3 languages, and that was super impressive, as well as just people telling me how their city is and what was going on there, graph wise and hip hop wise.
Mm-hmm.
And this was so new because I was clueless that they even knew anything, that this was happening there. I thought this was only happening in New York. And that was great. It excited me and made me motivated me more when I came back to the U.S. to even work harder. And they also influenced me in certain ways, just painting with different guys like CMP and this guy Nug and Poem. Because Poem was also invited. We did this collaborative wall at the Jam, and just painting with them, I learned a few little techniques that I was excited to get back to the Bronx and put to use. Nice. As well as I got a lot of paint, and I emptied my whole clothing bag, and I put 50 Sparvar cans. They had Sparvar, Auto K, and they had Buntlack, but Sparvar was cheap, what they call cheap paint, and Zev still allowed me to put 50 cans in my bag. And they allowed me to get on the plane with that shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No lies.
The 90s, yo.
The 90s, baby. Take it back to the 90s.
So then can we talk about this, like how you transitioned into doing art direction? Because I see you right now as like an art director. Like that's how I've envisioned you, a lot of your work. I see how you direct your own work, and you just have that thing about you, that energy about you. So how did that become a thing in 93 or whenever you said that approximately you started doing that?
So once I came back, I was working at Unique and also now connected with a bunch of guys in Europe doing the whole pen pal thing. But while working at Unique, we had the access to a lot of industry people, music industry people, and just different people that work on record labels and stuff like that.
Okay.
And they would come in, a guy by the name of Ralph McDaniel just came into Unique and hired me and Wane to do one music video. And then from there, we were able to work a lot of other music videos through him. And he had a company called Classical Concept. So all those I remember.
And what was that? What was that first? What was that first music video?
First music video we did was for a group in the Bronx. I forgot the name of the group. They were from the Valley Crew. But some of the more famous videos that people know us for is like Headbanger with EPMD. It's like K Solo, EPMD.
Nice.
And also Redman.
And then we also, what would we have seen in that video that you did? Like, where was your art direction?
Oh, I mean, you can Google it. I mean, that a lot of times what we would do is just set up props for interior shots. We'd go around to prop houses in the city and we'd do that. And exterior shots, we just basically, you didn't really have to do much for exterior shots because back then they wanted it to be grimy. Right. So we just added the graffiti, you know? So Headbangers, that was one. We also did, I did also Cold World. With Jizzer and Rizzer.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you did this steady for like several years, right? How long did you do it? 93 until?
Yeah. We did the video art direction thing from, let's say about 96 all the way to maybe 2000,
Oh, okay.
And like I said, just to name a few of the groups, like I said, J. Rue the Damager, we did a video with him. The original Cold World, Jizzer, EPMD. Also, we did some singing groups like Boys to Men. Like if you to the end of the road, you see our name. We also did
nice.
What's the dude name that I can't remember his name now. Anyway,
well, we'll pull him
up. We did
up.
A bunch of different groups.
When you mentioned J. Rue, I know that you did J. Rue's logo. What about that too? Because that's an interesting thing is that you're slipping into industries through different ways. Like you're doing set, basically art direction, but like talking about creating sets or set design for videos. You had already been that guy doing airbrushing for different music industry people.
Yep.
Now it's come a little bit full circle back, and you're doing logos, which has a much longer reach. Obviously, right? You create a logo that's on an album and it goes. Who else were you making logos for at that time?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, again, all this stuff is kind of happening organically, and I didn't really know what the hell was going on.
So cool, man. You were just on the ride. You were on the wave, you were just surfing that wave.
Happening. It was domino effect. It was just kind of a domino effect. So what happened, like I said, Unique Boutique was definitely the hub to all these other industries where people like Ralph McDaniels and Classical Concept and guys like Wu-Tang itself will give us the opportunity because to home in on our skills.
Yeah, and like like one of your skills, man, it seems is. I was going to say you're a businessman. I don't know if that term is actually totally accurate. You're clearly an entrepreneur, right? Clearly, there's something in you. You have an entrepreneurial spirit, and I think it's 90. Is it 96 that the Writer's Bench came about? Because I really want to talk about the Writer's Bench, and I wonder if it's a good segue.
And again, one of the main reasons, definitely, you're 100%. And again, all these things stems from graffiti, and that's why I always stay close to my roots. I never forget where I come from, and that's why I always paint in the streets. I want to make that clear. Well, a lot of people, they try to shy away to get a little bit of success doing something, and they're like, oh yeah, here I am, this is me, and because graffiti was always frowned on. So once people got some success, they always kind of pushed graffiti to the side. But for me, I wanted to celebrate graffiti even more. We stayed in the streets doing clean trains and painting walls. And then what happened is through Unique Boutique and connecting with Europe guys from that first jam, I was also like a liaison to guys, bringing them, like guys who connected with European guys that had hip hop shops in Europe, mostly Germany. And they would come and I would take them around to sneaker stores and buy all the dead stock.
Nice.
So before all the reissue stuff, I'm going way back. I'm talking like from 93 to 96 to 98 to 2000.
Okay.
So these European guys would come once a month. They would stay at me at my crib. We'd shop, Fordham Road. We'd shop, Albee Square Mall. We'd go into the stores and ask them for like old shell toes and what they had in the basement that they didn't want, and buy it for cheap put it in duffel bags, and I'll take them to the airport, and they would quadruple their
No doubt.
price point.
Yeah.
So at the same time they wanted to buy some streetwear, which was something brand new. They wanted to buy T-shirts from like Futura and those guys. They had a brand called GFS, and with the Philly Blunt shirt. And then like on the West Coast, they wanted to buy Con Art or Third Rail.
Right.
And since that was all connected to graffiti, they were like, "Oh, Wayne, can you call these guys up?" I'd call them up and be like, "Yeah, yo, it's Wayne One, from the BX. Yo, I wanna buy a bunch of these T-shirts and this product. Can you ship it to?" So they'd be like, "All right." And we'd send them the money, we'd wire transfer them the money. They'd send it to me, and then we'd put that stuff in duffel bags, and these guys would take it to back to Germany. Now, my point of telling you this is how the Writers Bench started, because these guys had their brands, and then what happened was going to these brands with these guys that had the brands now influenced me to start my own brand, since I was an artist already, and since I was kind of known or whatever, doing my thing. Right. They were like, "Oh, why you don't do your own thing?" And I felt at first I was like, maybe not, but then I saw that it was kind of cool because there wasn't enough jobs coming from the record label, enough work. So I kind of liked the whole idea of creating little graphics and stuff. And cut and paste.
Yeah.
We did everything. We did everything off the computer then, like mostly cut and paste with printers and going to Kinko's, and then we transitioned to the whole computer thing. But so then I decided to take the name from the original Writers Bench, which is 149th Street for all the listeners, station on the 2s and 5s downstairs where writers congregated.
But hold on, before we get to how you named it, like what was the goal? Was there a goal early on? Like, did you say, yeah, Writers Bench, we want to become the next label of streetwear to like blow the fuck up? Or
no. I mean that wasn't the goal. The goal wasn't that. The goal initially, a lot of writers that I hung out with and that really were getting their hands dirty, because prior to me doing the Writers Bench and all these so-called writers doing their own brand, Echo came out with Echo Unlimited. The word on the street was he didn't really get his hands dirty. He was just somebody from the suburbs.
Yeah. And
people was talking about that, and they would say, "Oh yeah, whatever," and people would have conversations, and my whole thing was like, "Yo, yeah, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know, but I see it as a door opening. He's opening up the doors to people." And I was like, and then my thing was always, when people complain about something, is to say, "Well, why don't you do something about it?"
Right.
So I said to a bunch of guys, "Yo, let's put our money together and do our own thing then."
See, and I think that's that spirit that I was just talking about earlier. Put your money like where your mouth is, and instead of just talking about what someone's doing wrong, let's figure out how we can go do something right. I mean, that exactly. I think is the essence of an entrepreneur. That's also the essence of, I think, just people that understand how to like face some adversity and get over it.
Right.
Okay. So,
right. I mean, you're 100%. I mean, that's the way I was looking at it. Plus visually, I like what he did. Whether he was a legitimate writer or not, was another conversation.
Yeah.
Right. But visually, aesthetically, what he was doing was good. I like that. And so I was like, well, there's room for someone to bring the aesthetic from guys like us who do get our hands dirty. We could bring that into the game.
Yeah.
Nice. And when it was time to put, like I said, when it was time to put our money up and do it, nobody showed up.
Yeah, well, of course, that's one thing. But what I think is interesting is that your goal wasn't to blow up and become bigger than Echo. No. Your goal was to bring authenticity from the culture to a label. And that's interesting, man. Exactly. That's cool to push back on groups like Echo Unlimited that were not as, maybe just didn't have that same cred, didn't pay those same dues.
They didn't have they didn't have the experience. They weren't practitioners of the game, and I was.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
But what's interesting is that, Echo had like mass appeal. Like it went to the suburbs, it went to, the other continents, and everybody just ate it up because it was a clean aesthetic. It had enough of a graph street vibe to satisfy people. It had the elements, so.
Oh, no. The elements was there, and he was an illustrator, and he wasn't a bad one. He wasn't the best ones. Because there were guys like Doze Green out there, and there were guys, on the West Coast,
like you had mentioned, Con Art and Third Rail, and then Tribal after them. Yeah.
And Tribal, they would have kicked their ass easily.
Yeah.
And they came from more of what from the game.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. The point is there wasn't. If you look at the game of streetwear today, everybody and their mom has a brand. And if you got people talking about brands that ain't even artists. Oh, I'm a brand. You had which is a whole other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'm not even going to go there. But my thing back then was you could have talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it took a lot more than that product. I mean, way more. It's not like now you Google, oh yeah, printers in Brooklyn. No, you have to find a printer and to find a good one. You had to dig deep. You had to get a fucking Yellow Pages, or you had to find someone.
Yeah. So actually, tell us a little bit more about tell us about like that first year of getting the Writer's Bench off the ground. What kind of a year was it? What kind of steps did you take to build the brand?
Oh man. I mean, the first steps is finding out who self-awareness and what I wanted to bring to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a person that, like, I wasn't so hung up on who I was, because people are like, oh yeah, you're Wane 1, you can do Wane 1. I was like, nah. I was like, I wanted to bring my experiences that everyone could share. People like myself could say, oh, I can relate to that because that's how, I'm into that.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, the name Writer's Bench, which derived from the actual Writer's Bench station where writers congregated and things would happen from that moment, seemed to be the right core thing to take it from, which a lot of people could relate to, because even just because you're not in New York, that doesn't mean there wasn't a Writer's Bench. In different cities, there were places where people benched and watched buses or watch like today, huge with freights.
Mm-hmm.
People are benching all over the States, right? There's benches everywhere. So that's how I was thinking. I was thinking, timeless and, not really stuck on like, oh, I got to make Wane. It's got to be about the Wane brand. No.
Okay.
I say, it's got to be about something that we all can relate to.
Nice. Which was what?
And so I came up with sorry?
Which was what? What was that? What was that thing that you guys could all relate to?
That the name is called Writer's Bench, and within that name, I can pull everything from experience. I did shirts that said "What You Write."
Mm-hmm.
Way before people came out with a site and an IG, "What You Write." I put that on a shirt. "What You Write." Okay, things taken from crews that was famous, like NTA.
Mm-hmm.
No toys allowed. That's a crew from uptown, right? So I took that idea and I said, okay, no toys allowed. But I also took the MTA logo and flipped it to MTA,
mm-hmm.
which is what streetwear was at that time. When you looked at streetwear,
you looked lots of logos that were
brands
tweaked,
like
right?
GFS. And you looked at Jive, Fresh Jive, if people remember, and Pervert and all that. It's taking something that we all know and flipping it to a subculture where people can relate and go, oh,
exactly.
That's me. I gotta have one of those. Let me cop that. Give me an XL for that.
Hey, what was the Wayne? What was the first piece of clothing that you guys put out?
When I had the Writer's Bench, the first shirt I put out was a T-shirt called. It had a Writer's Bench tag on the front, and on the back it said 149, a place to meet or get beat.
Oh, snap.
That slogan came up. Hey, I got to give credit. Hold on. That slogan came up from Doc TC5. I was hanging out with Doc a lot. And Doc has a certain way of looking at everything. I did that, and that was the first shirt. And then what happened is I did a job with my partner Wane at the time. We did a graphic job with Tony Shellman. Now I'm dropping names for those that know, because people might be like, sometimes people say, "Oh, yo, what's he talking about?" Well, if you know, you know. So those guys, through some other guys, like Kinko, sorted me out, and we got this gig where we made a grip of money, me and Wen. And I took all my money, right, and I put it into the writer's bench, and I printed that shirt over and 4 or 5 other designs.
Nice.
I did another shirt that said, in bubble letters, it just said "shining," you know, and like at the time, that was a word people were using on the street. Yo, I'm shining. Yo, and then I did another shirt which said, it said, only the strong survive. And it had a character, a Rasta character wearing an army jacket. You know, this is 90s shit. Had an army jacket with a gun.
Okay.
Okay. And then I had another shirt, which is really more graphic, with a guy with a gun, silhouette of a gun. And in the circle, it said, the right to bear arms.
And so now you have all this material, you have all this product. Now you have all these shirts. Did you then, did you have a store?
Let me tell you how much product I had.
Okay.
No, I didn't have any store. I just made the product. I didn't know how I was going to sell it. I was like, yo, fuck it. I'm going to hustle it on the streets, right? So I made 6 dozen of each design. I spent all my money, right? Because I believed in this shit. I was passionate. That's what I think I do. I'm not the best by far, but I'm passionate and I'm more motivated than most motherfuckers will ever be. People will tell you that about me, because what happens is like, yo, I was motivated and I put what I believe in it. So I took all my money, I dumped it in that shit. I got 36 dozen shirts, and now I'm sitting in the house like, what the fuck do I do? Right? Right? So I started calling up all my cats from Europe that I was helping them with, you know, doing the thing. And then I went to Scrapyard. Scrapyard was the shop to go to in the city, which was scrap related. So I went to Scrapyard and I sold them a bunch of shirts. I told you about Elements of Style, my man Vince, Eli, and Jabster. They introduced me to a Japanese guy who was selling their stuff to Japan. This guy named Kirk, which later on I started calling him Captain Kirk, because he was kind of like facilitating New York indie brands, right? So I figured he was like the captain. So I said, yo, you need a name. He's like, I was like, Captain Kirk. All right. And Kirk basically bought the entire, what I had left after Scrapyard and the European guys. He bought the rest of the product. So now I'm sitting on like maybe $6 or $7 grand. The Japanese guys in streetwear, they're ruthless, B. Like, they believed in it more than us. Or should I say more than American culture? That, the dude just came to the crib with the money, cash in hand.
Nice.
It was like, I take it off, right?
Nice.
Shipped it back to Japan. And every 6 months, he would do an order. And that's basically how it started. That's how it became, the day in, day out.
Yeah, nice. So your Japanese connection. And would he order that same amount every 6 months, like 6 dozen or something like that? Or would he order more?
No, I mean, the orders just doubled. So he came with an order that was basically 12 grand. I mean, not 12 grand, but 12 dozen. Or even more than that.
Great.
The orders kept quadrupling, and the thing about the Japanese is they would also front you the money. And anybody that remembers this particular time, they would give you, half the money up front, and then you'd be able to. So basically, you could finance.
Cover your costs. Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's great.
So now I'm making T-shirts. I'm making 5-panel hats. I'm making ski hats. I'm trying to make the brand larger. I'm trying to expand.
And I'm curious,
on the line.
Who else was partnering with you at the Writer's Bench to help you expand the line and the brand?
Okay, I mean, when it came to financially, it was really just the Japanese guys and guys from Europe.
Okay.
But so friends would start helping me out. Friends was help. Initially, it was just homeboys, homies that was just helping me. My crew whatever, when I got order or shipping orders or whatever.
But you never had an official
my
partner.
close friend, I would say HO was my partner.
Okay.
I would say that.
Nice.
He was my partner. I'm not going to say he was. He was my partner. But then creatively, he basically, he would throw ideas, but basically he was handling production and other things that like a guy like me who was creative was too slow on and just didn't want to do. Right? I would do it because I know I had to do it. But he came in and he structured the game in that way. Okay. And then it allowed me to still be Wane One on the street as an artist, as well as like connecting with all the guys. So let's say like after that, I did a design with Cope. So I reached out. I think Cope was the first person outside of Doc that I reached out to. I reached out to Cope because he had the Cope video at the time, and I thought it would be a good fit. Yeah. And there's always a lot of controversy and stuff around Cope. So I said to myself, he'd be an excellent person. So I met up with him. I know him for a long time, and I said, "Yo, let's do this T-shirt." At the time, he hadn't done any T-shirt or anything with anyone. Okay, that's a fact because I got the T-shirts. We could date it. Okay, so what happened is he was down for it. So we did a T-shirt. I came up with the idea. I said, "Yo, we're gonna do," because Writers Bench is WB and his crew was KD, which is Kings Destroy. So I said, "Okay, we do a WB versus KD in type, and then you do your throw up, and I'll do your throw up, mixed in with all that." At the time, I was also heavily influenced by skateboard design because the way they were doing things was using raw material and scanning it and then working in Photoshop and doing the layout. And then you still, so I would take a piece of paper and crumble it up, or I'd spray paint and drips on a paper and I'd scan it. And I was intermixing that stuff with type to give it this real grunge look, this real grassroots look that I liked about the 90s. To me, the 90s was grimy still, and I wanted that to transcend on the T-shirt. Anyway, we did the shirt. It worked out. And then after that, I did several T-shirts with a lot of writers. I did one with Ghost. I did one with Serve FBA. I did one with Bates. Bates did one of the best shirts. Fresh. And my idea and I did one with Shane 125. I would dig out these guys. Long story short, I would tell them my idea of what I felt we were trying to convey, and then I would just let them go and do their thing. They would draw it, and then I would take back the raw material and I would lay it out in the computer. And then one about rest in peace to Case 2, because we did a shirt with him. Rest in peace. One of the greatest that ever did it. Absolutely. So I can go on, but
no. Well, and I mean, this is the thing. Like, I'm super interested in the Writers Bench, and I always thought you had a team. So now I'm even more impressed that for the most part you were doing all the creative decisions on your own. And I don't know if that's part of the reason why eventually the Writers Bench ended. But what I do know is that that's impressive that you were basically the entire creative team. You had your partner that you said was helping you with basically administrative stuff and probably contributed, but that's impressive, man. And I had talked about that, the being an entrepreneur. And I think another thing about people like you is that, you can speak, you can clearly kind of express your ideas, which obviously helps. And I think of you as you mentioned to me before the call about this, that you did a panel discussion at UCLA. And one thing that I was thinking about, and you told me that was in 1998, right? That you went to, And it's kind of with all your entrepreneurial stuff and just the way that you've had other writers underneath you that you've taught things to, it seems like you're a natural teacher. I mean,
I just want to say, you know what, Adam, it really, I like I said, man, I'm not I don't think I'm any genius or anything, or I'm not the most talented person. I think for me, it's just, I like people. I generally just love people and I love to work with people. Yeah. That's why initially when I got to Europe and I seen how people work together on this one mural and how guys was doing a character here and guys was doing this here, I loved it. I loved it even more than what we were doing here. Not that what we were doing here wasn't the correct way, but I love the idea of all these guys working for one goal, you know, and the more I traveled, the more I saw that. And that was my addiction to traveling, is to constantly go places and meet these guys and interact with them, because they did things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be amazing. And I was able to learn from that and bring it back and apply it to the New York hustle. Because the New York hustle is also one thing that is a special thing that a lot of people don't have. You have to be back in those days, you know, to kind of be that type of entrepreneur or hustler. You had to hang with guys that they had this hustle thing in them. It's something about New York and something about being on the street, that they knew how to take something, make something out of it, and flip it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was yeah. Go on.
Well, I was just, I mean, that is sort of like the genius of like people, right? Is that you have to do that. You have to just take things and flip it. And, you know, I was trying to ask you about UCLA just because I wonder, we're not going to jump, but I wonder like if there's going to be more speaking in your future. But before we get to that, let's talk about that. Who invited you out to California to be on a panel, and what was the discussion about?
There's a guy. So how this happened was, it was a panel graffiti. It was a graffiti panel at UCLA, and it was, I believe, now as you know, as my memory gets, you know, it gets a little faded, but I believe it was a guy that I believe he wrote a little bit, and he also DJ. I believe it was Dusk. I can't remember, man. He's gonna kill me, you know. But through him, it was basically just to run through it, because you know we could be running out of time. But what happened is, yeah, Ket Risk Crew, COD. He got invited. He had started up a hip hop magazine called Stress Magazine, and yeah. I was helping him here and there, and he got invited to this panel speaking at UCLA, and we talked on the phone, and I was like, oh, word, that's cool. I was like, who they got on the panel? They had Fab Five Freddy, and they had one of the actors from Menace to Society, okay, and then they had a bunch of professors, right? And then I was like, yo, I told him, I said, yo, they need more writers. And he was like, yo, who do you think they should get? I said, yo, me. and he was like, yeah, but you don't do public speaking. And I was like, yo, but I lived the experience. So
nice.
You know, I was like, these guys that are professors, why should they speak for us? Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. And they might be able to articulate it in a different way and rewrite it, but they didn't live it.
Right. No,
okay?
Of course not.
And he agreed, and I was like, yo, who's organizing it? He was like, this guy does. I was like, okay, tell him I'm interested. Tell him I've traveled, I've done this. This is what I'm doing, and I'm interested in speaking. And he was like, cool. He told him, and the guy was like, bet. And they flew me out. They paid all expenses paid, and they even paid me a stipend fee.
Of course, yeah,
for speaking. And then on top of that, I did it several more times. You know, I did it in Sweden one time, which.
But that LA one, it was basically you and Ket were the only writers on the panel, and then there were professors, and who else did you say was up there? Oh, Fab Five and an actor.
Fab Five Freddy is credited as a writer.
Of course.
So he was there, the actor guy, two professors, and then Dust. This guy, I hope his name is right. Dust. He was more of a DJ guy, but he wrote a little bit. He was basically the moderator.
Okay. And what was the experience like? Because this is your first time speaking publicly, which is, I mean, that can be scary for a lot of people. However, it's a topic you're very comfortable with. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like up there with those professors and how the conversation moved along?
Yeah, well, it definitely was at first intimidating, you know, because I'd never done it before. But once we got into the niche of things, there's a lot of questions that I was able to answer that they didn't even have the experience. I mean, at that particular time, I was the only one sitting on the panel that had any experience of what was going on in Europe with a European graffiti writer, because I had been there. once certain questions that Dusk kept asking, I was the only one that could answer, because he was like, "Oh, well, you were in Europe. What's it like in Europe? What's the scene like? Trains painted. How do European writers see the culture? Do they embrace it? What's it like? Because there was no internet.
Right.
You couldn't Google it.
I mean, the internet was there, but it wasn't popular yet, and there was no Google. You're right. You couldn't just easily search things.
Listen,
right.
Most people didn't have a computer still in 1998.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah, I know.
So if the only way to get this information was if you were part of the culture,
right,
or you followed it on the underground graffiti magazines, which was called zines. It was a kind of like underground comics, and they were sold in very few places. At this particular time, the only place that you could really find it that was kind of like a business that had an outlet was Tower Records.
Right.
If you were in the country, and I think in Japan, Tower Records, because when the buyer bought, they would spread the music or the content, to every Tower Records. And if you were wherever you were, if you were able to go in there and get a zine, whether it was a European zine or Can Control from the West Coast, or Flashbacks from the East Coast, and you were able to find out what was going on in the scene in each people's city, right. And that was what that's people's IG now.
And you were saying that you were on this panel and you had these answers that people just like couldn't find. And what I wanted to get at was like,
they were clueless.
Yeah, they had to be clueless because they didn't live it. You were the only one. Well, you and Fab Five and Cat, but you were the guys who lived it. After that experience, man, after that panel, I'm curious how you felt when you walked off that stage where you're with all these professors, but actually you were the one that held all the knowledge, or so much of the knowledge. That must have felt good. What were your feelings? What were your thoughts after that?
Well, it felt good that there were people hearing what we had to say, and it was just another check on the list to prove that, or to certify, or should I say confirm that this culture and this art form is just going to get bigger. That's what it was, really. Which for me, that was my concern, because people always frowned on it. Every time we came into the light, so to speak, people were like trying to push us back into the dark, into the shadows, where they were saying, "Oh, you guys are not really artists. You guys are vandals." They're just kicking us in the balls, like Von Baudet. When you look at the Von Baudet comic strips,
yeah,
like the turd. Anyway,
right.
He gets kicked in the balls.
Yeah.
That's what they were doing to us all. The people always, I try to look at the positive things in life, not the negative.
Right.
There's always a positive and a negative side to everything. You hear these people speak about graffiti. They always want to talk about the negative stuff. Yo, there's an upside and a downside to everything. If you get on a plane, the shit could crash. But no one's talking about it. I'm not talking about it. I don't get on planes talking about, you just talk about the positive things. You talk about getting to your destination and what you're going to do when you get there. And it's great that you can get there in a few hours.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. Let's talk about the good things that came out of it.
Yeah, that's cool. And so,
the culture,
and then I wonder, so like now you left the stage in UCLA with this kind of maybe newfound or like a reconfirmed thing that this culture is about to blow. I wonder, because you were a businessman at the time, you were running your own streetwear line. Did it give you more faith?
Well,
more
I
hope?
I don't really consider myself to kind of be a businessman. I was just really trying to survive.
Well,
no,
right. Yes.
Seriously.
But you were running a business. You were running the writer's bench, which was a business. Yeah.
I was seeing it as a small business. Sure. I mean, I paid taxes and selling shirts, and we did trade shows.
Yeah.
And I came off the path, and I it made me feel good about that. And I just knew that there was a lot more people that was curious about it and that wanted to know about it. Yeah. And we were just happy and looking for outlets where we could bring them this information.
Yeah, and that's
here
cool.
We are
man,
in my life in letters.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, that's like a really good segue, because what I think that's it. I think this is our part 2, and we're at 1998, which you'll now be officially the first person, if you will, come back and do a part 3, so we can wrap up. Because 1998 to 2017, a lot going down, and but at that point in 98, I just think it's so interesting, man, that you had so much going on, and that maybe you had this moment also where you're like, oh wow, I have information, I have experience and knowledge that other people don't have, that I can now share with people. And like the fact that you're here sharing it with us, the way you just did, is it's great. It's an honor, and I thank you.
Hey, listen, I thank you so much for bringing me back. I'm not sure if they're going to want to listen to a part 3.
I bet they will.
But I just hope they got some more insight. I think part 2 was good because, I talked a little bit more about, just the process of how, I've turned it into a lifestyle.
Yeah, man.
Which is something that quite a few people do today, artists like ourselves. And, I'm just happy to still be around and to see, and be part of the culture, and to still attend festivals and be a part of something that. Dude,
listen, man, it's impressive, man, to see you keep doing it. And I'm not trying to say you're old and everything. It's just like you are still doing it at a high level. That's impressive.
Hey, listen, I'm never going to stop painting, but I think to the level of that I'm painting, the quantity and the pace, hey, at some point you gotta slow down and now, listen, now I'm just trying to focus more on building a body of work and showing some work in institutions, and
well, that's great. And actually, just like we ended last season, I want people that don't know where to find your work, able to find it. So where should people go to see your most current stuff or backlogs of work? Where can we go online to find it?
Yes, let's do that. Thank you so much, Adam. You can find my work on IG at Wane COD, also on Facebook, Wane COD. I'm not on there a lot, but you can see stuff there. And I have a website. You can download my CV and my bio and all that stuff, which is Wane1.com. Yeah.
Okay. And
and if you want to buy a piece of art, affordable piece of art, and you're a true fan, you can buy a piece of art at an affordable price at www.3 times spelled out dope.com.
3 times dope. That's right. Okay. That's great. And I have a feeling
support living artists. People got to support living artists, man.
There you go. It's true. It's true. We're doing our best to like shine some light on some of these artists like yourself. Man, I feel real good, man.
You're doing it.
Well, yeah.
My life in letters is incredible.
Dude, thank you, man. You've been a big part of it so far. Not just your episode, but we've had a lot of great talks since our episode, and you've contributed a lot of advice. And
always.
I look at you as a wise cat, and I'm blessed to call you friend. And listen, thanks you, man. Thanks,
Likewise,
Wayne.
Brother.
Yeah, man, and we'll talk soon.
So, thank you so much. Keep it going, brother.